All right, welcome back. If episode 1 was, what is a bond? This is, who keeps borrowing all this money? Because here's the dirty little secret. The bond market isn't one thing. It's not bonds, it's a city. Different neighborhoods, different personalities, different levels of sketch. Some areas are quiet, some are boring on purpose. Some look fine, until you realize everyone there is leveraged to the eyeballs. So today we're doing a bar crawl. Me, you, and a mental waiver you should have signed. No spreadsheets, no jargon, just vibes, incentives, and risk. First stop, best seat in the bar, corner table, back straight, doesn't even look at the menu, dark suit, calm voice, reeks of mouthwash and authority. This is Uncle Sam. He doesn't ask to borrow money, he tells you how long he's borrowing it for. 3 months, 2 years, 10 years, 30 years. Same borrower, different wait time. Nobody serious worries about whether Uncle Sam pays you back. The real question is, how long is my money stuck here? And what do I get paid to wait? That's the Treasury market. And Uncle Sam borrows constantly. Not because he's broke, because he can. But look closer at the table. See those napkins he's writing on? Those aren't just loans. They're the collateral for the entire world. Think of them like the chips in a casino. If the casino runs out of chips, nobody can play. In 2019, the plumbing clogged. The repo market, which is basically a high-speed pawn shop for banks, had a seizure. Rates spiked to 10% overnight. Why? Because the world ran out of Uncle Sam's napkins. That's the scary part of Table 1. It's not that he won't pay you back. It's that the entire global financial system is built on his IOU. If the napkins get too expensive, or if there aren't enough of them, the gearbox of global finance grinds to a halt. When Uncle Sam sneezes, the rest of this bar gets the plague. Wait, stop. Before we go to the next table, look at the guy behind the bar. Crisp white button-down, black vest perfectly ironed, bow tie that screams country club. He isn't borrowing money. He isn't lending his own money either. This is the bartender, the Federal Reserve. He doesn't issue bonds, but he is the biggest buyer in the room. He's the guy who decides how expensive the drinks are. When he wants the party to get wild, he pours cheap liquor, low interest rates. Everyone at every table starts borrowing, spending, and feeling like a genius. But when the bar starts getting too rowdy, inflation, he pulls the bottle back. He raises the price of the drinks. Suddenly, everyone at the junk table realizes they can't afford their next round. The bartender doesn't care if you're a polished overachiever or a junk taco truck. He cares about the dual mandate, keeping everyone employed and making sure the napkins, dollars, don't lose their value. If you want to know what the tables are going to do next, don't watch the tables. Watch the bartender's hands. Is he reaching for the tap or the tab? Next table over, blue blazer, perfectly pressed pants, wire rim glasses. Looks successful. Needs you to know it. This is investment grade. Street name, IG. Think Apple, Microsoft, Google. Companies with more cash than some countries, still borrowing money. Why? Because wealthy people don't spend their own money if they don't have to. When money's cheap, you lock it in. Debt is a tool if you understand it. Lately, these guys have been playing a game called financial engineering. Say a tech giant has $100 billion in a bank in Ireland. If they bring it back to the US, they pay a massive tax bill. So they go to the bond market instead. Hey man, lend us $10 billion at 4%. They use that borrowed money to buy back their own stock. It's a shell game. They use debt to make their stock price look sexy. It works perfectly until the AI revolution shows up. AI needs data centers. Data centers need power grids, infrastructure that costs billions before it earns a dollar. Suddenly that cheap debt from 2021 is coming due. Now they have to refinance at 6% or 7%. Even the overachievers eventually run out of other people's money. When these titans start selling bonds just to keep the lights on in their server farms, the rest of the market feels the squeeze.
Here is a bro tip for you. Why are we even at these tables? When you buy a stock, you are an owner. You're in the boat with the CEO. If the boat hits a billionaire dollar treasure chest, you're rich. But if the boat sinks, you are the last person off. You get nothing. When you buy a bond, you are a lender. You are the guy who owns the boat's mortgage. If the company goes bust, the owners, stockholders, get wiped out. But the lenders, you, get to walk into the office, grab the computers, sell the desks, and take the remaining cash. In the bond world, we don't need the company to the moon. We just need them to stay alive long enough to pay us back. Stocks are about hope. Bonds are about math. And in 2026, math is winning. Now things get fun. Loose tie, ketchup stain, phone upside down. Hasn't had a stable job since the Reagan administration. Still somehow confident. This is high yield, also known as junk. Not an insult, a warning label. This guy doesn't borrow because it's smart. He borrows because the bill is due. His business works, as long as nothing changes. Low rates? He's a genius. Tight credit? He's calling everyone he knows. Bro, I just need to refi, it's fine. Here's the problem. The maturity wall. See, most junk bonds are issued for 5 to 7 years. A lot of these zombies, companies that can barely pay their interest, loaded up on debt in 2020. They thought the party would never end. Well, the sun is coming up. The maturity wall hits in 2025 and 2026. They have to refinance that old 3% debt into new 9% debt. If your business barely works at 3%, it's a corpse at 9%. High yield is the bond market's early warning system. Stocks lie. High yield tells the truth, loudly. Over by the window, daylight, half-finished drink, socially awkward. This is munis, states, cities, school districts. They borrow for roads, hospitals, stuff nobody tweets about. Their pitch? You won't get rich, but the IRS won't touch it. Munis don't usually explode. They decay, slowly. Population leaves, pensions balloon, tax base shrinks. Think about your local bridge. If the city can't sell bonds, that bridge doesn't get fixed. If the bridge doesn't get fixed, your commute sucks. This is the part of the bond market that actually touches your tires every morning. But here is the catch. Unlike Uncle Sam, a city can't print money. If a city like Chicago or a state like Illinois gets into a pension trap, they have two choices. Raise your taxes until you move, or stop paying the bondholders. I hear you, New Yorkers, but that special episode is for another day. When the tax-smart uncle starts sweating, it means your local services are about to get a lot more expensive and a lot more broken. This one feels wholesome. Kitchen table energy, kids' drawings on the fridge. This is MBS. Millions of normal people rolled into one bond. They pay their mortgage every month, until they don't. They refinance when rates drop. They panic when jobs disappear. Wall Street models them. Historically, defaults are low. Yeah, historically. When assumptions hold, MBS hums. But when life changes all at once, when the couple next door realizes their house is worth less than the loan, that's when the kitchen table catches fire. If you're wondering why you can't find a house for a decent price right now, it's because the MBS market is locked up. People with 3% mortgages are sitting on those bonds like they're the holy grail. They aren't selling, which means there's no supply, which means the couple next door is now the couple stuck in their starter home forever. 2008 says hello, but 2026 says, good luck moving. Last stop, laptop open, dead eyes, Excel everywhere. This is structured credit. The smartest guys in the room, packaging risk into neat little boxes. They take the junk tacos, the MBS casserole, and some corporate steak scraps, mix them together, and tell you it's a diversified asset. It works great, until one assumption breaks. Why should you care about the guy with dead eyes? Because of liquidity. In the stock market, you can sell shares in a microsecond. In structured credit, sometimes there is no buyer. Imagine trying to sell a house during a hurricane. When these smartest guys get a margin call, they can't sell their complicated boxes. So what do? They sell the safe stuff. They sell their treasuries. They sell their gold. This is how a problem in a tiny, statistically safe corner turns into a global fire sale. The Excel guy is the one who accidentally pulls the fire alarm for the whole bar because his model didn't account for reality. Stocks get the headlines. Crypto gets the memes. But bonds? Bonds set the rules. They price risk. They punish weakness. They spot trouble early. Nothing blows up alone. Think of this bar as being connected by 1,000 invisible strings. If Uncle Sam trips, the overachiever spills his drink. If the junk guy passes out, the spreadsheet guy gets a margin call. Rates rise, treasuries move, IG spreads widen, junk panics, mortgages slow, structured guys sweat. Same bar, same night, different reactions. If you understand who's borrowing, you understand what breaks next. It's not about predicting the future, it's about reading the room. You want to know if the economy is going to crash? Stop watching the news and start watching the junk table. They'll tell you the truth long before the news anchors do. All right, next time we're getting into the judges of this bar. The credit rating agencies, S&P, Moody's, Fitch. The guys who decide who gets a seat at the table and who gets kicked out the back door. And how everyone trusted them, right up until they didn't. I'm the bond bro. Stay liquid.